bounces away. Penalty flag down. Lamar Thomas has got it. Lamar Thomas is on his way down the sideline. George Teague is after him and runs him down. Takes the ball away from him. Teague's got the ball. And they tackle Teague back at the 12. Game's over. Alabama defeats Miami. Number 2 beats number 1, 34-13.
Blitz on from the 1. And they throw a fade right side of the end zone for Owens. He got both feet in. Touchdown catch over the shoulder. And here we go. Oh, they're going to have a big fight. There goes Owens. Puts it down. And he levels it.
Here it goes.
And now Teague is aimed at by an offensive lineman. Flozell Adams pulls Teague away. And Owens is waved to the bench. And he stands in the middle of the star and holds the ball out.
Let me tell you something, Brad. Terrell Owens started it. Emmett Smith went out to the 50, trumped him. Now Terrell Owens comes back, and George Teague said, you know what, I'm not going to take this. Good for George Teague.
Yes, good for George Teague, good for everybody else, and welcome everybody into another edition of Teague's Take with George Teague. Alongside George and JT, I'm IndyCar Tim, and we are remote this week due to some circumstances beyond our control. We are not live at the Maverick Bar as we usually are every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. We encourage everybody to come out on Tuesdays to the Maverick Bar, 1616 West Hebron Parkway there in Carrollton, right off of 121 in Hebron Parkway. Hang out with us before the show, hang out with us after the show, say hello, and get to know everybody. It's a good time out there every Tuesday. We'll be back there next Tuesday, hopefully, but we'll let everybody know on social media what's going on. Make sure you follow the show at Teague's Take. It's just at Teague's Take, or is it at Teague's Take Podcast? I can never remember, George.
Teague's Take. Just at Teague's
Take. And then, of course, you can follow George on Twitter at Teague Football.
Yes,
and then, JT, what are you on Twitter?
At Teague13.
At Teague13. I, of course, am at IndyCar Tim. Nobody cares. Really good show for everybody tonight. We're real excited to be here. We hope everybody's watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. The comments are open, so if you got a question for our special guest, we'll get into that here in just a second. Please feel free to post your comments, questions there on the side, and we'll be able to get to them and read them and address them, hopefully. George, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest tonight?
All right. Yeah, and thank everybody for tuning in today, and thank you for our guest for coming on too. But I want to say, I do have to put this out, that I'm really, really excited about this show for a lot of reasons. I mean, we get to talk a lot about sports and have great guests on. We've had tremendous, people on here, coaches and players, and just people from all different kind of backgrounds. And I've been looking forward to this one for a long time because it really hits home and personal with me, probably more than usual, because this young lady that's going to be addressing us today kind of has some inside knowledge or some data or some research. You guys know how much, it's particularly JT, how big he is into the data and the research of things. And when I had an opportunity, full disclosure, I've had an opportunity to talk to her before on multiple occasions. And as a former athlete, some of the things that she said to me or questioned me about or whatever really, really hit home. It actually brought some comfort to me in more ways than you can imagine. So some of the knowledge that she has, she's bringing to us from out of state. She's in Louisiana right now, and she's had the opportunity to do some research with a lot of players on her own time. And I think she has a lot to share. Only one downfall that she has, and we'll be sure to cover this later, is that she's a LSU fan. We're not going to address that early on. We're going to hit that a little bit later because I need to know why.
And a Saints fan.
Oh, and the Saints. Well, I'll just have to ask you later, why isn't it Tulane? But anyway. Okay, so I'm calling her Denise because I've tried a lot of times to try to say her last name. It looks like, it's just
I didn't even try it.
Alcoser. and I've asked her like 20 times, how do you say that again? So Denise, can you tell us how to say your last name one more time, please?
Alcoser.
Alcoser, yes.
I would have butchered that. I'm glad I didn't try that.
Yes. So her background is in the medical field. We'll have her talk about that in a little bit. Before I ask your question, I don't want to not give you credit for your background, Denise. So can you tell us a little bit about your background? Been promoting it. I know about speech pathologist, but it's a whole lot more than that, right?
Yes. As a speech pathologist, most people associate a speech pathologist with pediatric speech therapy. When someone's having trouble with their speech, we teach them to speak better. But where my background comes in for the past 16 years is on traumatic brain injury units, stroke units, and now working with former professional football players. So I'm more geared towards the head injury component of it versus the articulation speech. Speech therapy is also concerned with cognition and communication. So yes, we know how to speak, but do we have the words to speak? Do we have the brain power to speak? Do we have attention, problem solving, reasoning, all those things that make us function? So I am a speech pathologist, but I'm a little more of a head pathologist, I guess you could say.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. And I know there's a lot of different things that we're going to want to, talk about with that or ask you about, especially regarding the brains of NFL players. And, someone actually sent me a message just not too long ago, wanted to know about boxers as well. So, but I want to get to this question right now. I've been talking about it for 2 weeks or longer, probably a month. So I want to ask you out the jump, there's something that you had mentioned to me when we were meeting and talking one time, and you were talking about your ability to, first of all, to know what kind of positions guys play when you see them. That was very interesting. But is it really true that you can tell if IndyCar Tim has what it takes to be able to play in the NFL by asking him a series of questions and listening to what he has to say? Is that really possible for you to do?
It's not by looking at me that I don't.
Comes in all body types. Yeah, in a way, one thing that when I first started working with athletes, all the stuff out there talks about head injuries and the damage and the damage and the damage. And a lot of it is based on standardized testing that they give y'all. And yes, I administer standardized tests, but it's not with the intent to check off whether you got the answer right or wrong. Give you the point, take away the point, and then get a collaborative score, interpret that, and then say, hey, he has mild damage, he has moderate damage. That is the purpose of the testing, but what I more or less use the testing for is I want to see how your brain's thinking. If you got the wrong answer, I'm not too concerned with that answer if you tell me how you arrived at that answer. And so what I'm seeing is elite athletes tend to arrive at answers a little bit different than the average bear. For example, a lot of answers are concrete, black and white, keep it simple. But some of these tests want that abstract kind of gray thinking response. And so where the stereotype of football players speak like cavemen, they're simple, it's because they're not educated or they've hit their head. Well, this game is so complex, you have to keep it simple. And there's no point in circling the airport when you can land the plane. There's no point in talking about things in the way that most civilians talk about things, because it leaves room for debate. It leaves room for people questioning what their roles are, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it. So if you keep it simple and direct, everybody knows what their job is and they can go on about their job. So like I said, the standardized testing, a lot of times I find I'm having to penalize because the test is wanting a specific answer. But what I'm laughing about is I get the same answer from probably over 200, 300 football players. When I was giving some of these tests to general population, I'll just call them civilians.
Muggles is what we called them in college.
Muggles, Okay, Muggle. What happens is I would get a plethora of different answers, and I had to kind of dig in their background and figure out, why am I getting this random answer? And, he could have been a farmer. He could have a 6th grade education. Some of that dictated some of the responses. But like I said, when I first started, golly, they're all getting this wrong. Wait a minute, hold on. I'm on player 50, and they're all giving me the exact same answer. So I had to dial it back and figure out, why am I getting the same answer? They're not all the same race. They're not all the same age. They're not all from the same backgrounds. What do these people that I'm evaluating have in common? And it's the game of football and the design and what football has instilled in their brains and almost conditioned. Yes, there's damage. It's not to say that there's not damage, which slows processes, but we have to give credit to the design and the discipline of this game and how it carries with these players even after retirement. One of the big things is, well, he doesn't play football anymore. That's true, but you can take the girl out the trailer park. Can't necessarily take the trailer park out the girl. So we can take your jersey off and take you off the field. When you leave the NFL, we don't give you a lobectomy and scramble your brain and reprogram it. So those same skills, the same discipline, the same condition carries with these players. And this transition is a lifelong transition. And what happens is people assume that what is being presented is damage when oftentimes it's design.
Interesting. That's deep, man. It's really deep.
Because the brain, when you look at the brain from the ages of 0 to 3, it's kind of just building. And then between the ages, I would say about adolescence to adulthood, your brain goes through this whole pruning process in which we build what our brain's going to become. It's safe to say that environment plays a big role in this brain development. Even if you look at, and I think I was telling George this, when you look at the juvenile justice system and you have a kid that's grown up in juvenile justice system, their brain is developing around an environment that commands different skills than the kid that's carefree out and about. So if a kid has grown up in this system, when they reach adulthood, the likelihood of them ending up in prison is pretty high because the skills that they learn to survive, survival of the fittest, eat or be eaten, sounds kind of like the NFL, those skills don't carry over when you get in civilian life.
So you're bringing up some things about criminal behavior a little bit, and alluding to some of that. And oftentimes you see a lot of negativity on television and the writings about guys who are, being abusive to their wives or maybe losing their money, and all this kind of stuff post career. And I know there's a statistic that has been thrown out there ever since I've retired that, almost 80% of, they say, it was reported by ESPN that almost 80% of us end up within 2 years after playing being divorced, broke, maybe in jail, it's all negative type stuff. Now, of course, the NFL does say that that's not true, through their data or whatnot. And I really don't know the truth. But do you think that there are some inherent problems with us that maybe lead to violence or lack of understanding, especially when it comes to our wives?
Yeah, you gotta understand, your brain was conditioned around an aggressive sport. And it's not to say that CTE, like I said, doesn't exist. That can cause some of this aggression. But some of this aggression can be a form of cry out for mental health, frustration, irritability, all that bottles up. And when you've been conditioned to handle your emotions in a different way than most people, some of it can be explosive. Football's fight or flight. It's fight. It's not flight. So it takes a little while not to reprogram the brain, but override that hardwiring that happened when the brain was developing, and football played a big role in that development. It's not a matter of I don't know what's right, what's wrong. Sometimes it's just reactive. And it's not making excuses, but it is saying that it's not necessarily attributed strictly to damage that is resulting in this behavior, that some of it is just brain development and the circumstances you've been conditioned under. I use the example sometimes, not comparing you to wild animals, but if we raise an animal in captivity and their brain fully matures in captivity, they don't fear humans, they go to humans for food. What happens when we release that animal into the wild?
They never make it.
Survive.
Mhm.
Or vice versa. You put them on stage with you for a magic show and they bite your face off. And then we're questioning, what happened? Why did it do that? It's a wild animal. It has instincts. And y'all are conditioned in a certain way that often provides that. You know, the big thing too is like the stereotypical things that players come in with, or the wives or loved ones' professions, mainly the wives, come in is he doesn't listen to a damn thing I say. His memory's awful. And when I start the testing and start breaking it down, then they say, well, he has selective memory. And I say, you know, when you hear memory, the first thing you're going to go to is dementia, Alzheimer's. That's what everything out there is saying. Dementia, Alzheimer's, this is causing memory problems. But y'all's attention is garbage. It is garbage. But in your defense, it is developed and trained to be garbage by civilian standards. Process, purge, keep it moving. What happened on first down is irrelevant. We're on second. What happened on second, we're on third. It's always that forward thinking and everything. So yes, your body may be present, but y'all are forward thinkers. Y'all are always on the next thing. So what happens is you walk into a room, why am I in here? Well, you had the thought, but you started thinking about the next thing and your body went into motion. A lot of times too is y'all tend to listen with your eyes, not your ears, because your eyes don't lie. Doesn't matter what the guy across the field, the shit he's talking and anything else he's saying. You're watching his body, you're watching his movements, and that's speaking louder than any verbalization can speak to you. I often ask players, do you hear crowd noise? Players tell me no. They say, I don't hear crowd noise. You know, I hear my heart beating. Everything's internal. All processing is going on. And then I tell the wives, unfortunately, they have a way of making you crowd noise. Because when their hands and eyes are engaged, their auditory cortex starts hushing verbal stimuli, because that's the way to focus and get the job done. And so alternating and dividing attention, it's not an option. It's focused attention, and y'all have that. But with that, adrenaline is what helps y'all focus attention. Adrenaline is what helps activate the brain and, you know, keep it aware. Unfortunately, when you retire from football, where are those adrenaline spikes? Where's that stuff that activates the brain and engages you? Not candlelight conversations, because when y'all communicate, it's with the intent to make a point and end the conversation. So it's 1, 2, not 1, 2, 3, 4, run around and keep going. So what happens is when people start talking like that, your auditory cortex starts pushing back, because how long does a play call take?
Hopefully only 5 seconds. That's probably too long.
Exactly. And then what? Go on about your business.
Yep.
So it's not to say that you're only capable of a 5-second auditory attention span. You're hardwired for that. And it requires a lot of effort to override the hardwiring, not undo it. You can't undo it. Our brains are what they are. Hence, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But you have to override that hardwiring. And that is what requires a lot of effort for the brain. And it results in cognitive fatigue. It results in players disengaging from socialization, because the effort it sometimes takes, one, to pay attention, to talk back and forth, to be focused on what that person's saying, and then to later on organize it, put it on a shelf to recall it later on. That's a process. And it's a process that a lot of players do.
No work.
Just show me what you got. Just show me what you got to tell me. I don't need to hear all that. And I think I get the example with George saying, you know, you ask your wife, did you get the sugar? And what do we love to do? You know, when I went to the store the other day, I had to take Maple Street because Plum Street had an accident. And I saw Cheryl at the store and she was telling me about, and all you're in your head going, did you get the sugar? Did you get the sugar? That's all you want to know. And so you're hearing wah, 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 crowd noise. But y'all have a unique ability to make people think you're going left when you're going right the whole time. Instinctive wiring. So you're making her think she's listening. So guess what you held responsible for? That memory that never even happened because the attention wasn't there. And then you walk away from the conversation going, I don't even know if she got the damn sugar. But later on, God forbid you bring up, so have you seen Cheryl lately? See, I told you the other day, blah, blah, blah. And you're going, oh, man, did you get the sugar? So a lot of times that is what happens. And, you know, it's not so much the memory as in you're unable to make memory. It's the effort of the environment that you're in that it requires a lot of y'all to make that memory. Now, when I talked about overriding hardwiring, what I'm finding very unique with this population is y'all have three things going against y'all that most civilians can't really relate to. Severe chronic pain. If you have pain receptors popping up in your head, think about on a good day when you have a headache and somebody tells you do your taxes. Not today, Satan. It's just not happening. But these players have chronic pain. Pain receptors are firing all the time. The perception is, well, he doesn't look like he's in pain. And the reality is because he's designed to make it not look like he's in pain. Because pain shows weakness. This is survival of the fittest. This is a performance-based sport. The only acceptable answer for the 20 plus years that these players played football when somebody said, hey, Teague, what's wrong? Nothing. It didn't matter if you had a bone sticking out your leg. It didn't matter what was going on. The only acceptable thing was nothing. And if there was a problem, whose problem is it to fix? Not their spouses, not their teammates, theirs. And so to undo that wiring is very hard. The other component is sleep deprivation. Countless number of former players tell me I don't sleep because of mental health, anxiety, depression, that constant, especially the guys fresh from the league. What's next? What's next? They feel like they have to be somewhere. Something has to go on. So you're not sleeping, which means you're not recharging your brain. Sleep is vital to brain health. You have pain receptors popping off. And now you have mental health and depression from leaving the league. All that's going on within these players internally, but the perception is, well, he looks fine. And the reality is they're designed to make you think they look fine because there's a predator out there, as far as they're concerned, who's waiting for you to not look fine because they're going to exploit whatever weakness you're showing. So, like I said, the reality is all those things affect attention and in turn affect memory. Some of the personality things, and feel free to interrupt me because I know I babble a lot.
No, I want to ask.
Well, I've got a couple of questions.
What you got?
Yeah.
Well, first I want to say you have already you shattered what I thought I had as a memory, and my reasons for. So I guess just a little backstory. The first time I ever played in a varsity high school game was I was thrown out there. Somebody got hurt, and I wasn't actually supposed to be on the field. And they just told me, "Hey, get out there, play safety." And apparently, by accounts of some of my friends, the stadium was very loud. I didn't hear any of this. I couldn't actually hear my teammates. The only reason I knew what I was supposed to do is because I was looking at somebody and they were giving me signals. And I was like, oh, now I know what to do. But in that moment, I couldn't hear anything. I trying my best. I couldn't hear anything. And that, I chalked it up to just being afraid, I guess. But hearing a deeper explanation was cool to kind of understand how that actually happens and how you can tune out crowd noise. But my actual question is more on the memory thing. But you kind of were talking about shorter term memory. But what do you find with longer term information recall? It seems like, since I got to throw my dig in there, LSU has just forgotten how to play football, apparently.
Sorry.
So, the short-term memory makes sense because this happens to me all the time. I walk into a room and I'm like, okay, I came in here for some reason, but I can't remember. So then I leave, and then I have the thought again, and I go into the room, and then once again I'm like, why am I in here? I don't understand why I keep walking into this room and I leave. But long term, I guess years down the line, do you see something that may suggest that players are losing longer term memory rather than short things due to not necessarily because of crowd noise and ignoring things that we find not important, but long-term information?
So long-term memory, one of the things and to answer Emily's question, LSU tailgating is where I got that.
That's my wife, by the way.
That's ever $12.
Make sure we erase what she's saying right now.
Yeah, we'll have to bleep that out before it makes it to Launchpad.
So long-term memory, it's a little bit different of a store than short-term memory. Even long-term memory, the reason this is bad, but it is what it is. Women's memory is so much better than men's because we attach emotionally to things more so that memory sticks a little bit better. I think back and I can remember things that happened when I was 5 years old. Yeah. And I can't remember something that happened 2 years ago. I can't remember some of the girls I played soccer with that I should, because I played with them for years. But what happens with that long-term memory is how the memory's stored, what it's connected to. Aging process affects that a lot, but the long-term effects of whether it's brain damage versus just natural aging, it's hard to kind of pilfer through that, because as we get older, we start remembering things a little bit different. You do have the aging brain. You also have listening that starts playing a role. Hard of hearing starts playing a role because that listening effort to remember things and engage in conversation sometimes presents where, they don't remember that when they're having a hard time hearing. But the long term, I'm not sure of that one, because like I said, I never really test long-term memory because a lot of players don't come in complaining with the long term. It's more the short term. Even the older players, we've had players that come through that played in the first Super Bowl or played in the game before it was called the Super Bowl. And it's amazing how 82 years old, they're coming in with the same complaints that the 31-year-old that freshly retired from the league coming in with. I know what I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. And I said, how many times have you been told to explain yourself when your brain was developing? Nobody wanted to hear your mouth. Probably still don't want to hear your mouth. But coach never said, tell me you understand. Let's have a discussion about you understanding. What did coach say? Just go do, and I'll know that you understand me. So you're coming from a world that tells you, listen with your eyes and speak with your body. And now you're in a world that tells you, listen with your ears and speak with your mouth. Well, that would have gotten me in so much trouble for the past 20 years. So like I said, the long-term effects, not really sure, because like I said, I'm not hearing about the long-term memory complaints until there's full-blown dementia and things like that being diagnosed. And even so, believe it or not, those long-term memories, even with dementia, a lot of those memories are still in there because they're embedded in those cognitive reserves. And your cognitive reserves can be whether your birth order, that kind of helped develop your brain, how many siblings you had. That's the stuff that's kind of last to go.
Gotcha.
Thank you very much for this first part. I think, Tim, we probably should take a break.
Yep.
Right here at this point.
Yep. So this is Teague's Take. We're here with Denise Alcoser. Is that right? Close.
Alcoser.
Horseshoe. Thank you.
I was listening.
Well, there you go. It's a memory thing. Okay. We've got about a 3.5 minute break here. Then we're going to come back, and Denise is going to share some more information with us. We've got lots of questions for her. This is Teague's Take. We'll be back right after this. Hey, sports and sports memorabilia fans. This is IndyCar Tim. I want to talk to you about our new friend Chris Gordon over at the Cowboy House. CowboyHouseSports.com on the web. Now, Chris is super passionate about all sports, and that's why the Cowboy House is so much more than just a Dallas Cowboys sports memorabilia store. He's got unique game-used memorabilia and rare, hard-to-find autographs for teams across the globe. Everything from the NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, golf, UFC, soccer, Olympics, even from Hollywood and the political sector. And his store isn't just a fancy mall store. It's more of a man cave that he likes to share with his friends and customers. Come on into the store at 209 South Shady Shores Drive, Suite 200 in Lake Dallas, and you can walk on the Texas Stadium end zone turf. You can sit in a chair from Yankee Stadium or Texas Rangers Globe Life Park. Check out hundreds of autographed jerseys from hundreds of teams. Check out thousands of photos signed with certificates of authenticity. He's also got custom framing for all of your sports memorabilia items. Chris Gordon over at CowboyHouseSports.com. 214-551-5978. Thank you, Cowboy House.
Need a one-stop shop for Cowboys news and happenings over at the Star in Frisco? Click on over to CowboysSI.com, featuring Mike Fisher with 30 years experience covering America's team. It's the most popular of all the Sports Illustrated sites and home to the Cowboys Blitzcast podcast. CowboysSI.com is the place to get inside your Cowboys. With such a talented team of writers and reporters over there, you'll always know the latest about personnel and roster moves, salary cap issues, and draft class status. Click on over to CowboysSI.com and always be in the know and get the inside scoop on America's team.
The Maverick Bar and Grill in Carrollton, Texas, North Dallas's premier sports bar and grill, located at 1616 West Hebron Parkway. It's 16 minutes from just about anywhere in DFW. With all the live action on dozens of TVs and the big screen, it's the place to hang out and watch the return of sports with all of your friends. Friday and Saturday nights, you'll find the best live music in DFW right there at the Maverick Bar. And of course, on Thursday nights at 6 p.m., you'll find us broadcasting Teague's Take live with Alabama and Cowboys legend George Teague. Come hang out and be a part of the show. Check out the Maverick Bar and Grill in Carrollton, 972-492-7500, or on the web at themaverickbar.com.
Hey, podcast listeners, this is IndyCar Tim, and I want to talk to you about some friends of ours over at ProfoundSites.com. That's Brent Thomas at ProfoundSites.com for your personal and commercial needs. We're talking about websites built, repaired, secured, maintained, and websites found. Brent Thomas and ProfoundSites.com provide e-commerce development, website development, online marketing, and web, mobile, and e-commerce consulting. With over 10 years experience, ProfoundSites.com is responsible for the creation of GeorgeTeague.com, where you can hear the George Teague podcast called Teague's Take each week. Brent Thomas and ProfoundSites.com can take you through the entire pain-free process of building your new website. From initial discussion to planning, to design, to coding, programming, and then finally the launch. Contact Brent Thomas at ProfoundSites.com or email him at brent@ProfoundSites.com.
Increase time inside your home, noticing all the little things needing attention? Let Repair Resource be your one trusted contractor to tackle all your home repair needs. They do it all, from electrical, plumbing, drywall, to painting and flooring of all types. They can even handle your exterior needs like fencing, patio covers, concrete pads, and decking. No job is too big and no job is too small. Repair Resource does it all. Give them a call at 972-415-1198 or check them out on the web at repair-resource.com.
Meat Church. Do you need to take your barbecue and grilling game to the next level? Check out the great line of products from Meat Church Barbecue. From seasoning and rubs to full-blown recipes like pork belly burnt ends, smoked queso, beef ribs to smoked bologna, and Texas-style brisket, Meat Church has what you need. If your barbecue and grilling game is lacking, check out their barbecue classes and events. They'll help you raise your game to impress your friends and family. If you're in the Waxahachie area, please check out their store at 205 West College Street or give them a call at 214-980-1063 or head on over to Meat meetchurch.com for locations near you where all their great products are available, or order directly from them online at meetchurch.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Teague's Take. As you can see, we are not live from the Maverick Bar in Carrollton. Once again, we are on remote at our respective homes. Things that we could not control kept us out of the Maverick Bar tonight, but we should be back next week. We'll let everybody know on social media what's going on and when we'll be back there. But, hey, everybody come out and check us out Tuesdays, 8 p.m. at the Maverick Bar there in Carrollton, 1616 West Hebron Parkway, right there at the intersection of 121 and Hebron Parkway. It's a good time out there. We get there. We start the show at 8. We get there a little bit early. Come hang out with us. Spend a little time with us after the show and then talk to us. And tell us about your favorite memories of George, either at Alabama or with the Cowboys or the Packers, but just don't bring up Miami.
No, but someone can come and buy me some lemon pepper hot wing or chicken wings.
There you go.
Or I don't know, the buffalo wings are really good too. Them fries, I think. I don't know. JT never.
The fries are where it's at. The fries and the fried pickles.
Yes, every time I order the fried pickles, somebody tends to reach their hand in my little plate or bowl. But
hey, she sets it right in between us, equidistant between the both of us. She knows it's for both of us.
Okay, Dessa, if you're listening, please put my fried pickle on the other side next Tuesday.
I think she knows that for next week. Yeah, we are talking with, I'm going to try it again, Denise Alcoser.
Close enough.
Air, like the thing you breathe.
Alcoser.
JT's married to someone from that part of the country. So, all right.
Yeah, let's speak a little French too, you know?
Yes, that's what it is. He speaks French.
Is it French?
Yeah.
If it's French, je m'appelle Tim et toi. That's all I got.
That's pretty good.
That was my 2 years of high school French, and that's all I kept.
You got more than me.
Pathologist for the Center of Sport at Tulane University, and we are talking about the effects of sports and playing football on the human brain and the difficulties it can cause immediately and later in life. And we're comparing those things. It's a great discussion so far. And then, Denise, I wanted to ask you a little bit about, as we get back into the discussion here, I wanted to ask you a little bit about CTE, because that seems to be, you know, I never heard of CTE years ago. It seems to be a somewhat new, I don't know if it's a new term or a new diagnosis or what the situation is. But you know, it seems to be a real concern with the NFL lately. They've developed new helmets and new products and new procedures to detect it and to prevent it. And it seems like some of the old school players that played in the era when really the equipment wasn't that great are suffering from it. Some of them are anyway. Can it really? They're talking about it affecting the brain in a negative way, changing a person's personality even to the point where, of course, Junior Seau supposedly sacrificed his life so that studies could be done on his brain because he thought that he suffered from CTE. And then, of course, we have the Aaron Hernandez situation where, you know, he played football most of his life. Of course, he was still pretty young when he did what he did, but can CTE really affect the brain in such a way that it can make someone do something like what Aaron Hernandez did, where he may not have done something like that before?
Yeah, CTE causes that lack of impulse control things, you know, just kind of the almost dementia-like symptoms, except for it's a different type of dementia. It's a brain disease. And so it can affect how one part of the brain's talking to another part of the brain, especially that frontal lobe. That's your kind of executive control center that has your impulse control, your memory, kind of your CEO that tells the rest of your brain what to do. So CTE is kind of global. In regards to like Aaron Hernandez and Junior Seau, the question then becomes, why are some players demonstrating it and some aren't? You know, I think it exists. I think it's there. We can't deny it. But why is it impacting some players more than impacting others? I think one big thing is CTE exists probably in a lot of brains, if not all brains, to a certain degree. Why is it prevalent and do these behaviors come out in some and not others? My opinion is that you have to look at the rest of the brain and the state of the rest of the brain. I played women's soccer. It's right up there with men's football of getting your head banged around. So I know there were games, I'm 40 years old, when I was younger where, I had the worst headache. I'm sure I was concussed, but it wasn't an option to come out because I could internally turn off that headache and still get the job done. So our body has a natural ability that when it's in pain, you stop doing what you're doing to cause the pain. And with the head, it's no different. But we can condition our bodies, and elite athletes especially, to override that component so that you don't realize damage is being done. So yes, CTE is there, but when I was on a rehab unit with traumatic brain injuries and strokes, one of the first things the doctor would ask is, what's the prognosis, and the family, what's the prognosis for improvement? One, I had to look at the severity, but that came secondary sometimes to, well, what does the rest of the brain look like? Is this the person who's on their fourth stroke? Is this an alcoholic who has a history of kind of pickling their brain? Is this a person who has a couple mental health conditions? I don't have healthy brain to compensate for the brain damage. And I think that's what's important to realize here is that it's safe to say that every player to some degree probably has damage to their brain. Pugilism dementia was around way before this CTE. Muhammad Ali, the pugilism being boxing dementia, and causing a lot of these behaviors because you are banging your head around. But what's unique about boxing versus football is the direct hits. You're not hitting the ground. You literally have somebody punching you. You're not getting your injuries. A lot of football players get them from your quarterbacks, for example. All their hits are sustained to the back of their head. You can't hit them in the face. You can't hit them. What's causing their hit is the ground. They're falling back defensively and hitting the ground. So if you have focal damage back there, I would expect to see a lot of football players coming in with occipital lobe damage, visual disturbances, things like that. But that's not what I'm seeing. You have your running backs that are more prone to getting hit to the sides of the head, your wide receivers. Your linemen are more prone to getting hit to the front of the head. So with that said, you would think that damage would be more predictable given your position, but actually your performance is more predictable of that position. And so, like I said, CTE, it's not affecting certain positions more than others. It's not necessarily affecting people that played in the league longer than others. So I think it exists. I think it's in there. But that's why it's imperative that these players take care of the healthy brain that is in there, because it can help kind of keep the brain damage disease at bay. We do this with dementia patients. We say, these are your neurocognitive protective activities. You need to do this. You need to get sleep. You need to eat healthy. You need to do all these things because you do have a debilitating brain disease. And all these things are like pouring gasoline on fire. But with that leading into, well, what prevents the healthy brain in the athlete? That transition, the moment you tell an athlete whose performance-based perfection is what they demand of themselves, you're not good enough. Excuse my language, but the mind fuck starts there. Mm-hmm. You just told an elite athlete they're not good enough. It's hard for anybody to understand that because my career developed at 25. My brain developed and I chose my career. Their careers start developing at 5 and 6 years old, and their brain is developing around this career. So what happens is it's not that easy to just stop being what you were developed to be, which is survival of the fittest, eat or be eaten mentality. Perfection is what I demand of myself. Perfection is what keeps me in this league. Perfection is the only thing acceptable. So when you leave the league, not only do you lose a sense of yourself, The civilian life doesn't want the same skills you had in the league. It actually frowns upon them. A lot of players get accused of being tone deaf. You don't know how to talk to people. In reality, you don't. But you understand, tone came second in communication for 20 plus years. Coach can spit in your face, call you all kinds of names, yell, scream. You better have heard what the coach said. It was about the content. When you had a problem with your teammate, oh man, how am I going to put this? How am I going to say this? Let me watch how I say this before I have this discussion with him. You're not having a discussion. You're saying what you have to say in a respectful tone that is your teammate. You're not going to talk down to him because you will get checked. But your tone didn't matter. And now all of a sudden, just because we take you off the field and take your uniform off, your brain is supposed to override the wiring of tone. And meanwhile, your spouses are saying, you don't know how to talk to me. And you're going, what's wrong with how I'm talking to you? Did you hear what I said? And no, I'm not listening till you learn how to talk to me. But did you hear what I said? So now the problem is, I don't like the way you're talking to me. And the player's saying, you're not listening to what I'm telling you. That's what the problem is. So no communication's happening at that point. The other component of that is players get accused of having a lack of empathy. I'm crying and he doesn't even care. And this is all these things that people attribute to CTE, that I'm trying to explain some of the reality of what's going on in the brain and decipher between the two with, well, I say what I have to say. I know that you're crying, but you're crying because of an emotional reason, and that's your problem, not mine. Because rule number one is your problems are your problems and my problems are my problems. I'm in charge of fixing my problems. You're in charge of fixing yours. So when someone comes crying, you're trying to figure out what the problem is. The player's trying to figure out what's the problem. And if I can help the actual problem, I'm willing to help. But if the problem is how you feel about something, I can't help you with that. You have to figure that out. And that's not a lack of caring. That's just too much effortful thinking for no return half the time.
Right.
And players think smarter, not harder. And so let me just say what I have to do to get out of this conversation. And that's usually what happens. And so it's that, well, he doesn't have empathy for me, or I'm sitting here crying and he doesn't care. That's damage. They care. But what you also have to understand is sometimes when you're crying, they're in 10 out of 10 pain. They haven't slept. They really could care less about your problems, but they're not unloading their problems on you. And so that whole transitional process of, you are also conditioned to handle your emotions differently. I think I use the analogy all the time that as an athlete, when you're on that field, the worst thing you can do is incorporate emotion into anything. When you get in your own head, you're garbage. Doesn't matter if you're
we can't get in our feelings out on the field. What you say?
Yes. When you get in your feelings, the first time you mess up, your teammates got to slap you on the ass and say, come on. Second time,
the second time you
They're not
get
even
ejected
mad.
from a game and fined.
The second time, they're looking at coach to get your ass off the field. And it's not because you can't perform. You let emotion in. And athletes, elite athletes, especially in a male-dominated sport, are conditioned to compartmentalize that emotion. And there's no room for emotion. There isn't. And so the whole time you're playing, you detach all internal distractions to perform. Pain, sleep. You could play the game on 48 hours of no sleep effortlessly. You could play in 10 out of 10 pain. You can play pissed off because you can compartmentalize it. The problem is because you have an adrenaline target. Now, when you leave the league, that transition, what's there to distract these players? Where's their adrenaline? Where's their highs? Where's that stuff to get their focus off of them internally?
So
Conversation.
Denise, does any of this differ by race, a black player, a white player? Are we all kind of the same regardless? Has it got anything to do with backgrounds? He grew up rich. He grew up in the hood. How does it affect different social economic backgrounds?
That transition, I think, looks a little bit different. Yes, a little bit of race, but also just socioeconomic status. You have players that played football to escape poverty, to escape abusive households, to escape those things. And I think that occurs across all races. But we're also in society right now where y'all are big guys. And so when y'all come out and y'all are carrying yourselves a certain way, it creates conflict. And you're like, I'm just talking. Well, why are you talking so aggressive? I'm just talking. And then you have African-American males that also have, let alone whether you played football or not, have a stigma when they communicate. There's apprehension when they communicate. It's the times. I mean, we can't deny that. So that transition sometimes does look different across race. You also have the stigma of mental health in African-American men. That what I am seeing, and which is a good thing, is there's a lot more outreach to mental health by African-American men than in the past. Mental health used to just be the crazy middle-aged white woman thing back in the day. And so now a lot more opportunity to mental health and saying it's okay, I'm depressed, because I'm more concerned when you don't go through transition and when you're not depressed. Why do you not see a change in your lifestyle from what you were designed to do to what you're doing now? A lot of players, I'd say 90% of players we talked to, they weren't ready to leave the league. The league left them. So depression and anxiety are there. And when you don't tackle those, you have a constant brain fog you're in. So that's why the deficits and the complaints don't matter. I mean, age and race and all that aren't mattering because the design's the same. The transition is a little bit different. Talking with older players who played with the jock straps on their heads when we were talking about equipment and things like that, they laugh and joke because they say these young boys don't know, because when they played football was welfare. So they had to get jobs in the off season to support the household. So they became a little more well-rounded, I guess you could say, to civilian life, and having to kind of take the football hat off and put the civilian life hat on. But the guys that are younger don't get that luxury. So that transition is a lot harder. So like when you were talking about long-term memory and long-term effects on aging, it's hard to gauge because the hits may be the same. The protection's a little bit different. The older guys have age. The older guys have a little bit different of a design in that transition. They don't have the mental health that the younger guys have. So it's kind of muddy. What is mental health? What is CTE? What's long-term damage? All that stuff has implications. And as men get older, they don't sleep because they're up peeing all night. That's what a lot of the older players complain about. It's not chronic pain like the younger guys. It's, I have to pee all the time. And so I can't get good sleep. But when you ask them, is it depression or anxiety? No, I just have to pee. So they still have sleep deprivation, but it's for a different reason than the younger guys because they're having the chronic pain. And so all of that, and then they're completely disconnected. Birds of a feather flock together. It's funny, the wives will say, he's completely different around me than he is his teammates. Or he'll spend an hour or 3 hours on the phone talking to an old teammate, but I can't get him to talk to me for 15 minutes. And what I say is, birds of a feather flock together. That conversation, they can say 3 words to each other, and it's the equivalent of a 3-hour conversation with civilians. There's so much nonverbal communication. There's a sense of home. There is no effort on the brain to have those social interactions because they're communicating the same. But to have the social interactions, especially with women, we love to talk. We circle the airport. We don't land the plane. We want to talk about feelings. We want to talk about a bunch of things. And that's exhausting to a brain that is fighting against mental health, pain, and lack of sleep.
So you're saying when someone says something like, hey, give me 5 minutes, that means something different to me than somebody else. 5 minutes is an eternity. Is that?
So what happens is, this is the other thing. Y'all came from a world that is very structured and accountability. Every single person has their role. Everybody knows their role. Everybody knows their job. Everything's structured. Then y'all are introduced to this world of civilians where there's no accountability. We point the finger. We have to have 45-minute meetings to figure out what everybody's doing. I see you over there. I know.
I had them all day today.
And people don't understand that the reason you don't remember anything from that meeting is because after 5 seconds, you checked out. You checked out and you started thinking about what you need to do, because that is how you're programmed to worry about you and your job. So a lot of job satisfaction and corporate 9 to 5 kill y'all because of the countless meetings in which we have to tell the secretary she has to answer their phone, and y'all are going, why the hell? We just need to tell her what her role is in this plan, not what her job is within the job. So that drives y'all crazy. But then you also have civilians that show up 5 minutes late for a meeting, and you're looking going, oh, hell no. And they're going, calm down, Mr. CTE brain. It's 5 minutes. And y'all are explosive and reactive. 5 minutes would have gotten y'all fined. 5 minutes would have got your ass out the locker room. 5 minutes could have cost you your career. It's not just 5 minutes. And think about how much happens in a football game in 5 minutes. So don't say it's just 5 minutes. It's a waste of your time. It's a lack of accountability that they have for their teammates' time. It's just disrespectful for a lot of players. So right there, job satisfaction of we're always having meetings. I have to listen for more than 15 seconds of nonsense when they could have said, we're using blue pens today, but that took 45 minutes. In addition to people not showing up. Now, in y'all's world, because it's so structured and accountable, when there's a problem, it's easy to fix because everybody knows what the problem is and everybody can adjust on a dime. But not in the civilian world. We got to have another 45-minute meeting to figure out what happened, why it happened, who was responsible, and then you're looking around the room and nobody's owning that responsibility. That is miserable for y'all. And so the disengagement happens and it's, well, his memory's bad. He can't function. He can't do things. A lot of times the stereotype of y'all are controlling. It has to be his way. If it's not his way, he's all pissed off. And what I try to explain is these players effortlessly enter into problems because if it's their way, because they've already have a structure built in. They already have every piece in its position and ready to go. And if anything goes wrong, they can fix it. Now, if they have to enter into it the civilian way with, well, let's stop and talk about it first. Well, nobody's accountable for what their skill set is or what their limitations are. And now I have to fix them whining and crying because something nope, not today. And like I said, it's also an all or nothing type thing. Y'all's personalities, I always say, are like light switches. It's all or nothing. But that's how you have to play the game to survive in the game. It's all or nothing. So you approach everything with that intensity of black and white. There's no room for gray. Gray and all that flexibility leaves room for loss of control, loss of structure, loss of accountability. It's a duck. It's a duck. Not a hungry animal. That's what
would you tell a player, as we start to wind this down? What would you tell a guy like me that's transitioning, maybe out of the league, and he knows that he may have to work at some point in time? What kind of advice would you give a guy to say, hey, this is going to help you, make that transition into being a civilian?
So what I say is relax. Don't get so paranoid about the damage, because honestly, if there is damage, the best thing you can do is neurocognitive protective activities. Or you can sit and live in fear of damage, which nobody wants to do that. What I say is to sleep and the mental health and the pain. Find something. I know it's easier said than done. Find something enjoyable. Find something that is your new adrenaline. Find something that focuses you, because you need your brain to be constantly activated. A dormant brain is not a healthy brain. A brain that's not activated, like I said, think of prisoners. You hear the stories that come out of prison of what they come up with, and you're going, who the hell thinks of that? An idle mind thinks of that. An idle mind that has nothing to do. And it's nothing productive or constructive when you translate it. But what I always say is mental health, reach out. There are mental health providers out there that can help. If you don't feel confident that that mental health provider is helping you, don't say, well, see, it's all bullshit. Find one that does. Ask old teammates who they go to, especially if they do, because they do. They do go to mental health providers. There are y'all's local chapter meetings, I think, that players go to.
Yes.
Have those discussions of mental health. The sleep is another big component. There are things that say, there are studies out there that say sleep increases and lack of sleep intensifies pain, and vice versa. So it's that nice little triangle of stuff, but it really is being patient with yourself and understanding that you're not damaged goods. There's a reason that you're struggling in civilian life. It's very hard when you've always demanded perfection of yourself and not wanting to fail or show a weakness.
Well, let me tell you, I can tell you that you've helped me again, because this does clarify, and I know Consuela, she's listening, my wife, she's Miss Precise under these chat over here. But this helps me because now I know why it is so hard for me to be quarantined for 14 days, because it ain't working too good, man. There's only so much I can do around here, and I need to get out of here.
But that is mental health. And, a lot of players, you use the field. The field was always mental health. No matter what bullshit you were dealing with off that field, you were weightless on the field. And you didn't even care about the bullshit off the field because you knew you always had access to the field to release that stress, to have that moment. And so now you're cooped up and don't have access to the field you found after football. You're cooped up again. So you're getting restless. And a lot of guys can't exercise because of the pain. So you have an athlete who used to clear his mind through physical activity and going out and about that is now trapped in their own body. But yes, that's why you can't handle quarantine.
I'm laughing at Consuela because she just put on there, help me. So she got to need some therapy too. Hey, listen, thank you for your time. We're definitely going to have to do this again because I feel like there's more and more levels that we can get to with all of this stuff. And I know that we've had players that are listening that want more of this information, former players. I think that you could really help us all, and probably our wives and our families and our kids. Because I'll tell you that the first time I didn't go, or did I go watch it? I can't remember. What's the movie with the CTE?
Concussion.
Yeah,
Okay.
when Concussion came out, man, if you could have seen my family members looking at me like,
it's scary. It is.
You? And I was like, nah, I'm not there.
What I always say is, what I always tell the wives, one of the good guides, and even more so your teammates, to see the damage and the deficits are, I had one player tell me, if I were to act the exact same way I'm acting, where everybody's attributing this to damage, if I was on that field, nobody would think I have any damage or any problems because I'm acting the way I was designed to act. It's only a problem when you put me in a different environment. So a lot of times I'll ask the wives, when did you first notice this? Oh, he's always been like this. Or right when he left the league. It's never, well, I've saw this gradual decline over the years. It's usually, he's kind of always been like this, short-tempered, things like that. So it goes back to that design versus damage. I always say, when I can't put you back on the field to be the stealth that you are because you can't keep up, now I'm concerned because disease process is not going to pick and choose what it takes from you. An environment will pick and choose how you produce, but disease process is not going to say, well, we'll keep your driving skills, but we're going to take away your ability to work a 9-to-5 skill. We're going to take away your ability to work, but we're going to keep your financial management and health management. So it's going to take all those skills.
Well, thank you very much again. We will have to do this. I'll hit you up, and when I'm in New Orleans or something, Consuelo and I are there. We'll make sure you.
I can take a field trip to Dallas to go to a bar now.
Well, okay. Well, you can come on, and we'll bring you out to the Maverick.
Fried pickles.
We'll bring you out to a good old.
Share.
We'll bring you to a good old Alabama bar. And
I will wear my T-shirt proudly.
Let everybody see that shirt one more time. One more time. No, the answer is no. No one's sick of Alabama, especially on this show.
I can't even lie and say I bought this shirt like last year. I bought it the year before when we got our asses whipped, like 51 to 30. I kind of like tucked it in my pocket as I walked away from the stadium. In all honesty. Well,
thank you for being honest, and thank you for being honest with all the rest of this tough stuff too. We really appreciate it, man. It just softens my heart just to hear some of the things and get some clarity, and know that there is some reasoning or some help that's available to guys. For all you players that are listening, I do encourage you to make sure you get a part of your NFL chapter. If you got one close to you, get involved with the NFLPA. Find out what's going on with the trust. There are a lot of benefits for us out there that we have access to. And I'll tell you, there were years and years and years that I wasn't around it or didn't use it. And that was a big, big mistake. There's too much free stuff out there for us to check our brains, our bodies, our hearts. I mean, just all of it. You need to take advantage of that. You got to go away for 2 or 3 days, but you know what? If you're working like I am, you call them and you tell them I'm about to be gone for 4 days for my mental health, and go get it checked out.
And networking amongst y'all is crucial in this as well, because y'all will listen to each other before you listen to, if you would have said, so many players walk in and go, I don't need a speech therapist. What do I need a speech therapist for? Hold on, back up. I'm not offended, but the best therapeutic intervention sometimes is just y'all talking to each other, especially when it comes to, I left the league. What do I do? George, how did you make it? How did you get where you're at? Because right now I feel like I can only play football and that's the only thing I'm good at. And so that mentoring, I think, is beneficial to these younger players from the older guys who went through the ugly transitions as well.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We'll let you go and get out of here. Big round of applause for Denise. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Denise. And I'm not going to try to butcher your last name again, but we went on with it. Like George said, I can't wait to have you back on again, because that was some good stuff. And like you said, man, it's like an onion. We can just keep peeling the layers and layers and getting into it deeper and deeper. And I feel like that's where we were headed. So let's pick it up again next time when we have you back on.
All right. I appreciate y'all.
All right. There she goes. Thank you, Denise. Appreciate you very much.
Have a great night.
All right. Well, we are still Teague's Take. We got some sports discussion to get into. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to have some 2-point conversion talk, I think, on Money Matters, if that's where we still are. We're going to talk a little bit about the crime that took place at AT&T Stadium last night. Make no mistake, it was a crime that was committed. And may even talk a little Bama, Georgia. How do you like that?
Roll Tide. Always.
There you go. We are Teague's Take, and we'll be back right after this.
Hey, sports and sports memorabilia fans. This is IndyCar Tim. I want to talk to you about our new friend Chris Gordon over at the Cowboy House, cowboyhousesports.com on the web. Now, Chris is super passionate about all sports, and that's why the Cowboy House is so much more than just a Dallas Cowboys sports memorabilia store. He's got unique game-used memorabilia and rare, hard-to-find autographs for teams across the globe. Everything from the NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, golf, UFC, soccer, Olympics, even from Hollywood and the political sector. And his store isn't just a fancy mall store. It's more of a man cave that he likes to share with his friends and customers. Come on into the store at 209 South Shady Shores Drive, Suite 200 in Lake Dallas, and you can walk on the Texas Stadium end zone turf. You can sit in a chair from Yankee Stadium or Texas Rangers Globe Life Park. Check out hundreds of autographed jerseys from hundreds of teams. Check out thousands of photos signed with certificates of authenticity. He's also got custom framing for all of your sports memorabilia items. Chris Gordon over at CowboyHouseSports.com, 214-551-5978. Thank you, Cowboy House.
Need a one-stop shop for Cowboys news and happenings over at the Star in Frisco? Click on over to CowboysSI.com. Featuring Mike Fisher with 30 years experience covering America's team. It's the most popular of all the Sports Illustrated sites and home to the Cowboys Blitzcast podcast. CowboysSI.com is the place to get inside your Cowboys. With such a talented team of writers and reporters over there, you'll always know the latest about personnel and roster moves, salary cap issues, and draft class status. Click on over to CowboysSI.com and always be in the know and get the inside scoop on America's team.
The Maverick Bar and Grill in Carrollton, Texas, North Dallas's premier sports bar and grill, located at 1616 West Hebron Parkway. It's 16 minutes from just about anywhere in DFW. With all the live action on dozens of TVs and the big screen, it's the place to hang out and watch the return of sports with all of your friends. Friday and Saturday nights, you'll find the best live music in DFW right there at the Maverick Bar. And of course, on Thursday nights at 6 p.m., you'll find us broadcasting Teague's Take live with Alabama and Cowboys legend George Teague. Come hang out and be a part of the show. Check out the Maverick Bar and Grill in Carrollton, 972-492-7500, or on the web at themaverickbar.com.
Hey, podcast listeners, this is IndyCar Tim, and I want to talk to you about some friends of ours over at ProfoundSites.com. That's Brent Thomas at ProfoundSites.com for your personal and commercial needs. We're talking about websites built, repaired, secured, maintained, and websites found. Brent Thomas and ProfoundSites.com provide e-commerce development, website development, online marketing, and web, mobile, and e-commerce consulting. With over 10 years experience, ProfoundSites.com is responsible for the creation of GeorgeTeague.com, where you can hear the George Teague podcast called Teague's Take each week. Brent Thomas and ProfoundSites.com can take you through the entire pain-free process of building your new website, from initial discussion to planning, to design, to coding, programming, and then finally the launch. Contact Brent Thomas at ProfoundSites.com or email him at brent@ProfoundSites.com.
Increase time inside your home, noticing all the little things needing attention? Let Repair Resource be your one trusted contractor to tackle all your home repair needs. They do it all, from electrical, plumbing, drywall, to painting and flooring of all types. They can even handle your exterior needs like fencing, patio covers, concrete pads, and decking. No job is too big and no job is too small. Repair Resource does it all. Give them a call at 972-415-1198 or check them out on the web at repair-resource.com.
Meat Church. Do you need to take your barbecue and grilling game to the next level? Check out the great line of products from Meat Church Barbecue. From seasoning and rubs to full-blown recipes like pork belly burnt ends, smoked queso, beef ribs to smoked bologna, and Texas-style brisket, Meat Church has what you need. If your barbecue and grilling game is lacking, check out their barbecue classes and events. They'll help you raise your game to impress your friends and family. If you're in the Waxahachie area, please check out their store at 205 West College Street or give them a call at 214-980-1063 or head on over to meatchurch.com for locations near you where all their great products are available. Or order directly from them online at meatchurch.com.
And welcome back to Teague's Take alongside George and JT. I am still IndyCar Tim. And man, what a great discussion that was, George. That was a great idea, having her on and letting her explain a lot of that stuff, man. I mean, it's kind of new stuff, I think, in the well, at least maybe not to her, but it's new, at least from a public standpoint, hearing about stuff like that.
It is. And I thought that that's why when I first started talking to her about it, so, I actually was able to go through some of the tests that she referred to, a lot of the players that are listening here. We got several players and coaches who are listening in. And I tell you, so they are real familiar if they've gone through the process of taking these tests with it. They're checking our neuropsych stuff. And it was amazing to me, and I didn't say this to her, but when she actually walked into my little room and she says, have you ever done one of these tests before? And I have. I've done them yearly just for me to make sure that I'm still doing well, right?
Sure.
And so I said, yeah, I've done this a few times. And she goes, well, I'm not going to ask you these questions again. I'm going to tell you all of your answers. And me being a little smart ass that I am or whatever, I said, all right, I'll play this game. Let's go. And so she went through and she said, question is this, and this is your answer, blah, 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 blah. And all the way down the list or whatever, 100% correct on all of my answers. So I never wrote down or answered any of the questions. She said, yeah. And let me tell you, and I almost broke down and cried really at that moment, just because, there was an understanding, I guess, from somebody at that point. Right. And then I said, well, how do you know this? And then she went and started dissecting some of the stuff for me. And I actually texted Consuela at that time and said, man, I don't know who this lady is or who this godsend is here, but she just helped me out a whole bunch. And I'm glad if there was not one thing I learned this week, I'm glad I went through this part in this session. And so when she asked me some questions, I had to sometimes do some things with my hands as well. And she told me, and this is when she sold me, Tim and JT and all you listeners, that I knew she was talking about. She said, let me tell you, she said, I don't look at you guys' files because I don't like to do that. I want to try to figure you guys out, this kind of stuff. She said, the way you answered your questions, the way you answered your questions, you're probably a defensive player. Yeah. Probably safety, defensive back, like to hit people, whatever. And I said, yeah. And I said, tell me how you know that. And then she went to body language. She says, because of how the way, not how as in verbally, but what you did with your body to answer those questions. Your touch was different than offensive linemen or linebackers or whatever. She said, all these traits, you guys all do the exact same stuff, and then wow. I immediately asked her at that point, you know what? I need to get you on my podcast. And we need to tell people about this because my brother, my friends need to know that there's help for us and we need to, do it. So anyway, I'm glad we did it too. And I know we got some important stuff we need to talk about, some good football stuff, because, man, I tell you what, JT got me a great topic with Money Matters. So let's dive into that, man. JT, what you got for us today?
Yeah, so Money Matters, brought to you by ProfileInsights.com. We are talking about when to go for two. So there was a particular game that I was watching that I was not happy that I was watching it. So I don't have Red Zone. So I was on the phone with one of my buddies, and I was like, man, I don't even know what to watch. I have the 3 of the 4 worst NFL teams to choose from. I can either watch the Ravens beat up on the Eagles, or I can watch the Giants versus football team. So I decided the Giants versus football team was a little bit closer. So I was watching that game. And at the end, the football team had actually scored with no time left on the clock. And they were down by 1. And Ron Rivera decided to go for 2. And I was personally offended by this decision to go for 2.
Were they in Washington or were they in?
They were at home.
Well, there you go. I agree with the decision 100%.
What, to go for 2?
Yep. Go for the win at home.
Not with 5 minutes left.
No, there was no time left.
It was the last play of the game. You're either going to tie it, go to overtime, or you're going to lose it or win it.
No.
Now, so I'm going to make a case. We're going to talk analytics and all that kind of stuff too, but I'm going to make a case on why I thought it was a terrible decision. Because the longer the game goes on, the more likely the team with the most talent wins the game. And I was just looking at, as if I was Ron Rivera, I'm looking at an 0-5 Giants team, and I'm like, bro, you mean to tell me that you're not better than them? So when I was thinking of going for 2, I would say, hey, if you're down, if you're gonna go for 2 to win the game, I say do it on the road and do it when you think that the team is better than you, so you can just get on the bus or the plane or whatever and go home. But if you actually think you're better than the team, take them into overtime, which is what the Titans did. The Titans had a chance to go for 2, and I said, no, kick the field goal, go into overtime, hand the ball to Derrick Henry, and make them tackle Derrick Henry for 20 plays or however long it's going to take to get down the field. And if you can do that, you're going to win. They did. So
does this change between college, because the systems are different between college and the pros, though, and how you calculate when you need to go for 2?
I think in that situation, if you're at the end of the game, there's no time left, and you're either going to kick the field goal to tie it or go for 2. I think it changes between pro and college because of the differences in overtime between college and pro. In college, you're going to get the ball. You're guaranteed to get 1 possession in overtime. In the pros, although they have changed it a little bit, you're not guaranteed anything. You may not even see the ball and lose the game in the NFL still, which I hate. I hate that.
So
with all of my being.
I somewhat agree with Tim here, but I still think that the principle is the same between the two. If you think that your team is better than the other team, tie it up and go into overtime. Because if you are actually better than the other team, you can hold them on defense. If you are not better than the other team, then you probably can't. So if you're playing the Chiefs, you go for 2 and you try not to let Patrick Mahomes get the ball. But if you're playing the Giants, who don't have an offensive line and who doesn't have a great quarterback and doesn't have their running back, take a chance, play football.
Here's the issue I have with that. And like I said, man, if they make it and win the game, we're calling Ron Rivera genius. He's Riverboat Ron, man. Great call, If they lose, we're all questioning it like we are now. But here's the issue I have with him making that decision is he has already come out and come on record saying that he thinks they can win the division. That's why he changed the quarterback.
That's all I need to know. They kicked field goal.
Right. So if you really think that you have a chance to win the division, and he said that's why they changed quarterbacks. That's why they're going to Kyle Allen. He's done with Haskins. So if you think you actually have a chance to win the division, you need to get these wins, although it doesn't look like anybody wants to win the division right now. But you need to stack these things up. So, if it is a lost season, if you think it's a lost season, you have absolutely nothing to lose, then I can see going for 2, going for the win, especially at home. Normally I'd say in front of thousands of fans, but we know that's not the case. But, but you're kind of contradicting yourself now by going for 2 and going for the win. And you're in that scenario, I agree. Kick the field goal, go to overtime, and take your chances against the freaking Giants.
So I've got all kinds of numbers and whatnot. So this is me, or I guess this is
Vermeil made back in the 60s.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I want to see if these line up then.
Okay.
From what he made, but this is basically Profound Sites sponsoring me to advocate to be your person on the headset that is telling you whether or not you should be going for 2 or not.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain score deficits that I would say 100% of the time, no matter the situation, you go for 2.
Okay.
If you score a touchdown and the differential, if you are down by 11, 8, 5, or 2, go for 2. If you're 11, cut it to 9, and then, now you're playing a touchdown and a safety, or a touchdown and a field goal. You've cut it to a 2-score game. If you're down by 8, it doesn't matter. Essentially, you're either down by 8 or you're down by 6. You can go for 2 the next time. 5 makes sense because you can get down to 3. 4 doesn't help you. And 1 doesn't help you. You might as well try to tie it up if you're -2. Also, on the other side, if you are +1 you should always go for 2.
Right.
If you are +5, you should always go for 2. And if you are +12, you should always go for 2. Now, there are some, most of these, so you can run all the analytics you want. And I did. And most of it to me is all intuitive. Like, you don't have to be a math genius to figure this out. It just makes sense. It's better to be up by 3 than it is to be up by 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between being up by 1 and up by 2 is no difference. So go for 2. There are certain other game scenarios in which late game matters, where if you're down by 4 late game, you should go for 2. If you're down by 4 in the first quarter, kick the field goal, doesn't matter. If you're down by 10, or if you're up by 4. And then early game, I know you're not going to remember all these numbers, but I'm just trying to throw these out here to see if there's any of them that you're like, ooh, I don't know. If in the first quarter, if you're up by 8, go for 2. Or if you're up by 2, go for 2. The only one that's kind of like, what do you do, is -1. If you are down by 1, now this is where the analytics really kicked in. Basically, if you are down by 1 and there's less than 5 minutes left on the clock, the analytics say kick the field goal.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Everybody thinks, oh, well, the numbers guys say, oh, you're down by 1, go for 2. No, the analytics says the later it gets in the game, if you're down by 1, just kick the field goal.
Tie it up.
Yes. Now, I don't know if anybody saw Urban Meyer and Fox talking about when to go for 2 after college football this weekend. But I did want to pick on the one guy who claimed he was an analytics guy because he made me mad, because he said you should go for 2 because even if you, if you miss it the first time, if you're 50-50, if your conversion rate's 50%, if you miss it the first time, you have a better chance of making it the second time. That's dangerous, and that's not true.
That's not probability. That's not how probability.
No, that's not how probability works at all. It's just like flipping a coin. Just because you got heads the first time doesn't mean you're more likely to get tails. So, Tim, what does Dick Vermeil say? Does this sound reasonable? Are there any of those that he was like?
So keep in mind, back in the day when Dick Vermeil made this, he was the offensive coordinator. I said the 60s, it was the early 70s. He was the offensive coordinator at UCLA. Okay. And the article where I found this says that a lot of the old school coaches still use this same exact chart. Well, we know now there's new charts that have come out with analytics that break down, should you go for 1 or go for 2 based on the amount of time left in the game. They break it down even more. This has nothing to do with time left in the game. This is at any point in the game, you should go for 1 or 2. Okay. So, and it does break it down by if you lead by whatever, or if you trail by whatever. So just running down, you went trail by first. So if you score a touchdown and it tells you to go for 2, if you trail by after scoring, if you trail by 1, 2, 5, 9, 11, 12, 16 or 19. It goes all the way to 20.
Okay.
Scenarios, you go for 2.
Based on what I've done, I agree on all of those. I just think there are some that are missing. Well, yeah. Well, the -1 is there's a very tiny margin in when you shouldn't go for 2. But
what's interesting though is it says if you trail by 4 points, it says coach's decision. So apparently Vermeil could not make up his mind.
Yeah, it should. And based on this, it should be coach's decision unless it's the fourth quarter. Go for 2.
If you score a touchdown and you lead, then they think you should go for 2 if you lead by 1, 4, 5, 12, 15, or 19.
I agree with all those two.
Really, doesn't sound like a lot of that's changed throughout the years.
There's no 8 in that one? Is that the same as JT's with the 8?
No, so with 8, I say you should only be going for 2, basically, if it's not the fourth quarter. Right. If you are up by 8, if you scored a touchdown and you're currently up by 8 and it's not the fourth quarter, go for 2, try to make it 10.
Yeah,
Huh?
no, I would agree.
Because that would be
I hear you, but it's still two scores. So I'm looking at it from the head coach because if you miss, you're still at essentially one score, right? Maybe you can get to 8, but if I get to 9, I now know they got to score twice. Regardless,
Agree that the NFL waited way too long to put the 2-point conversion in play. Like they should have done this years ago, right?
Wait, I mean, yeah, I mean, I like the way the AFA.
Well, they're getting better now. The odds of getting 2 points before offenses were so good. They weren't very high, I don't think.
Well, it doesn't even matter. Some of the charts that I've seen, they've been basically saying as long as you are even 40% on 2-point conversions, you don't even have to be half. As long as you're, and they're saying 40% is actually bad. That'd be one of your worst teams in the league. And they're still saying, hey, if you're in these scenarios, these are like non-negotiable. These are the correct things to do.
Here's why I have it, and I agree with all of the other kind of stuff. But I'm a simple guy. All I say is, if you're trying to get 3 yards in one play, and you're that confident that you can make it, man, going for 4th and 1, 4th and 2, you should be doing this a whole lot more, even if you're backed up and you're back at the end of the field.
Well,
or whatever.
Well, there you go. You are already subscribing to more analytics. They would say, yeah, there's a lot of times where you punt the ball and you have no business punting the ball.
Yep.
Well, but I get you now. Me and you were standing on the sideline and doing things, and I still believe, especially at that level, you can flip the field. You can give yourself some other advantages depending on who you're playing, how your defense is playing. I get that, but you got to be able to flip the field. You don't want to give people short fields. That's how you get fired.
Well, yeah, no, that's true. I mean, and most of the analytics would say, like, if you're in your own half, for the most part, punt it. But if you're just out of field goal range and you're like, oh, all of the situations in which coaches are willing to take a delay of game to give them more room to punt, analytics would be like, just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably going to give them to him on the 25 anyway. Just go for it and give them the ball. Right? Why give up 5 yards so you can most likely punt it into the end zone?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to spot them 25 yards, spot them 10.
Nobody knows how to coffin corner punt anymore, huh, George? You don't even hear that anymore, do you? You don't hear that term anymore.
No, you really don't.
Nope.
They used to be like a staple in Madden. They used to have like drills and stuff where you try to nail it in the corner, and people they try to do all the backspin stuff now that never works.
They're getting too fancy, man. Just need to kick the ball. That's the way we
analytics.
Let's kick it. Well, okay. Well, that's a great subject, man, and it's really good because it is always a debate. And Tim hit it on the head. If you make it, you're right. If you don't make it, you're wrong. To everyone else, and we don't take into account the
right
analytics of what it means, because who was the other person? Well, Jason Garrett didn't use analytics, right? He used the gut feeling.
Yeah, we see where that got him.
I don't know. I just know I'm a person. I like to think that I'm objective when it comes to this stuff. So even if Ron Rivera would have converted on the 2-point conversion, I'd have been like, okay, great for you, but still, like, next time, don't do that.
Because of
your luck.
Analytics and the data, are you saying?
Yeah, because it's like, no, because you're better than the Giants. Like the fact that you had, but I guess at the same time,
are they?
So
one of them had a win going into the game, and the other one didn't.
True.
So
over Philadelphia, by the way.
Wait a minute. So JT, does this mean that now at our John Paul II games, you're going to be standing there with this little sheet, and then when we score, you're going to be hitting me on the headset saying, "Hey,
that's exactly what I'm trying to make the case for."
You don't want on the sideline holding up 2 fingers like that.
They already told you that I ain't going to remember what you said, so you better have that sheet because I don't have all that memorized.
No, I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to empower me to tell you this is a go for 2 situation. I don't care what you're feeling or how you remember the very first John Paul game when we were playing Prince of Peace. Yeah. You were worried that entire drive, whether like if we scored, did we go for 2? Did we not go for 2? Did we go in? Did we
there was a real conversation as we were getting close to.
Yes, we were actually on the sideline talking to each other. He was like, what are we going to go for 2? And of course, I was like, not my call to make. I don't get paid to do this. You do.
So,
but then I also told him, I said, if we do get down there and score, if you're actually asking my opinion, go for 2. Let's just get on the bus and go home, because we're probably not actually better than them right now.
That's right.
We didn't score, Tim, so we've never even had to make the decision.
So I was about to say, there's 2 really funny ends to the story, and one of them would be if you didn't score to begin with. I was going to say the other one would if you scored, decided to kick the extra point, and your kicker missed it.
All of that could have happened because this is our first year coming in, after a 0-30, campaign for the regime before us, and so just to even be at the point towards the end of the game, deciding, man, we're going to have a chance to win this thing. Then my head coach's cap really came on, saying, "Uh-oh, what am I going to do here?" Because my boss will be looking at me later. But anyway, okay, what else we got, man?
Let's talk about the crime that took place in Arlington last night. Not that there's a ton to talk about, but I'm sure, George, people are going to want to hear what you think about the again, another terrible defensive performance against a team that's really not that great, against a quarterback that didn't have a great game. But, man, we sure made them look good there in the second half.
Yes, we did. And I have to admit, during the game, I don't know how many group chats I was in, and being frustrated and hoping that things would change, because it got ugly really, really, really fast. And when I saw I wouldn't say I was really worried about the defense. I was really more worried about Andy Dalton early when he threw the ball right to.
Should have been a pick six.
I think the guy was like, "Did he really just throw this to me?" Didn't know how to catch it. Like, oh my gosh. And I wanted to see if he had got hit or what happened, and it wasn't that. Then that's when I thought, okay, this is about to be the Andy Dalton I didn't like when he was at Cincinnati. And so I think it's time, fellas. And I don't know. I think this is a time to be worried. I think we've kind of teetered and talked about the defense and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? Kyler Murray was missing on some throws. He missed some shots. He wasn't looking good, and I was hoping that we'd try to capitalize on some of those things and get the ball moving. And then it just looked like, and I see a lot of discussion of, well, why is Zeke fumbling so much? And I just think there's some morale issues that we have in the locker room that aren't being fixed or tapped into, whether that's through captains or coaches or whoever. Someone's not kicking somebody's ass and telling them, hey, we got to pick this shit up. Because, to be at the bottom of a defensive deal and having the offensive power you have, there's just some pride has to kick in at some point where somebody, Jerry, McCarthy, I don't know who it is, Zeke, someone got to step up and say this has to stop,
Well, so a couple of quick notes. Zeke, after fumbling twice, McCarthy benched him, but not even for a full series. And Pollard was playing well, dude. I think Zeke should have sat on the bench the rest of the game. I don't think he should have come back in the game. McCarthy's got to make a statement. I don't care who you are. You play like that, you're not going to play for me today. He had a chance to make a bold statement for the rest of the club. And Zeke knew he wasn't playing well. Zeke didn't have anything to say. He couldn't complain about being benched. So you got a perfect opportunity.
Did you notice that Zeke game changed when he came in? I know he was trying to be careful, but normally where he would try to truck stick someone on the sideline, he was running out of bounds.
Runs out of bounds, yep.
and things of that nature. So then I knew that was another problem. I was like, look, he doesn't have confidence in himself now. So, he's not going to have the game that you want him to have because he's now worried and not confident. And that's the worst thing that can happen because people see it the same way I saw it. His teammates are probably looking at him like, really? He just didn't try to truck this defensive back? I hear he just run out of bounds on his own, not even try to shake him or anything. That's what probably tugged at me more than anything, was just to see it look like guys were really starting to lay it down.
Well, I wanted to share some messages that I sent during the game that probably could have been tweets, but I tried to combine it to the messages this time instead of sharing my displeasure with the world.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was, we can't hold a 3-man rush. We're in trouble. And then Andy might suck. Steele might also suck. Oh, and the Cardinals might also suck.
I think I saw those tweets. What are you talking about?
So, I think this week I'm gonna lay off the defense just a little bit because
they played well to start.
Overall, they gave up fewer points than they normally do on average, but the offense also spotted the Cardinals 14 points basically with Zeke fumbling basically in the red zone. So I'm gonna chalk it up. They gave up 31 as a team, but the defense actually only gave up 17 is what I'm gonna say this week. So they'll get a pass from me this week.
Wait,
we'll see.
It was 38, wasn't it?
38.
Was it 38?
38.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So add another touchdown. So 24, which that would be league average. So not upset because I really thought that Chris Edmonds and DeAndre Hopkins was just going to have a field day and it was going to be the Browns again. I thought it was going to be ugly quicker than it was. But, Kyler Murray was also just missing people.
He was very average.
Yeah.
You missed.
Yeah. And I saw a lot of Cardinals talk. All the Cardinal fans have been talking about how they're not a very good football team. And I was kind of wondering, like, they're not as bad as the Cowboys are. I don't understand. I don't get it. But then, after the first quarter, I was kind of like, oh, maybe this is just not a very good Monday night game at all. We got a question from Periscope. Do you think if the Cowboys turnovers don't take place, do the Cowboys score points? No, I don't.
But you know what? The Cardinals probably wouldn't have scored those 2 touchdowns either. So
I think that those turnovers, that turned into 2 touchdowns, that's actually a 28-point swing because that's 7 points that the Cowboys didn't get, and then 7 points that you gave to the Cardinals.
And then Gallup dropped a touchdown pass, hit him right in the hand.
See what I'm saying? Oh my God! Don't get me started. I don't want to talk about this no more. Man.
So
let's go on. Let's go on to the other premier game on Saturday.
I got one more thing before we move on. I don't know if you've heard about this, George. You probably have, but I got to address this with you as a player because it was reported by the NFL Network and Jane Slater today that there are players in the locker room grumbling about the coaches and being specific, saying that they don't know what they're doing and they don't know how to teach and that they're bad at their jobs. Like those are,
and they said they were unprepared
and that they were unprepared for this game. So number one, of course, she didn't mention names. She wasn't about to go in and mention names. I have some theories about who those players might have been. And I just would like to address this with you as a former player. Have you heard of anything like this before? As far as not just one player, but a collective group of players, supposedly from both sides of the ball, being as outspoken as this against an entire coaching staff?
I would say I've heard of it in the sense of, not in the sense that you're going to a media personality and have them to do that. That is an ultimate crime. That is a no-no. You just can't do that. Because first of all, once people figure out who you are, you might as well figure out you're going to be gone. You might be thinking you're going to get the coaches fired. maybe that happens, but probably not, right? It's a trust factor. Anytime this has happened, and I have been on teams where it has happened, where we might have questioned coaches or scheme, or, if I'm speaking to my position coach or to my coordinator and saying, listen, I just can't grasp this. Sometimes we have those kind of relationships. I had it with Mike Zimmer. Bro, this is too hard, man. If you want me to play fast, this ain't the way. I understand what you're trying to do, but I can't make it go, And then he would at least say, okay, then let's try something else. So my point to that is, whoever those people are, I would hope that they would go to the head coach, to Jerry Jones, to Steven, to somebody within the organization and say, look, bro, there's like 10 of us that are really, really having a hard time here. We need some help. I don't know what that is. We need more time. We need someone to explain it a little bit different. Try to figure out a way other than, let me go to the media and say this, because that's a bigger issue. That's going to be a locker room issue. That's going to be something that's going to linger around this next game. They're going to be talking about it pregame. And the first time something happens is, we had players say it. Now it's just a big ass problem.
This might cause us to lose the football team.
Yes, it will.
I tweeted it out today that I don't expect the Cowboys to win that game at all.
The Cowboys, the biggest crime in all of this is that the Cowboys may legitimately make the playoffs at 5-11.
Yeah.
And then we will have wasted a 5-11 season to have the 17th or 18th overall pick, and some 10-6 team is going to be picking at like 10 because our division is so sorry.
I just want 2020 to be over. I mean, we're on to football. Let's fast forward. I saw the best tweet ever. We've been in 2020 for 5 years now, and I'm ready to get past it.
It seems like forever, doesn't it?
Oh, all right.
Moving on, a team that did have a fairly good weekend, of course, the Alabama Crimson Tide, as they overcome a halftime deficit to Georgia now for the third straight game. As we go back to the 2018 SEC championship, where Georgia led 21-14. Of course, Alabama came back and won that. The college football national championship in 2018, Georgia led 13-0. And then, of course, over the weekend, Georgia led 24-20 at the half. Nick Saban just seems to, number one, have a way of making adjustments at halftime, which apparently the Cowboys are still incapable of doing, even that now that Garrett's gone. But I believe the number against his former assistants is now, what is he, 22-0?
22-0.
22-0 against his former assistants. That is amazing.
I've got a theory. Well, not necessarily a theory, but I guess a shout out to teams that are doing it correctly. Those teams would include LSU, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Mizzou. I'm trying to think of all the teams in the SEC that don't have Saban assistants as head coaches, because here's the deal. If you were trying to hire a coach to dethrone Saban, clearly the answer is not go get somebody that used to work for him.
That's why
it doesn't work.
That's why he beat the dog out of Tennessee for real this week.
Yeah, I don't get the idea of the, well, we want to model our program after Alabama, so we need to go get somebody that's worked with him and knows how it goes. Like I understand that to a point, but then it's like that works maybe if you're in the Big Ten somewhere else where you don't have to play him. But if you're going to hire a Saban assistant and then they go expect to beat Saban, you might as well just hang that up. It was a bad hire as soon as you thought to pick up the phone.
Yep.
Well, Tim, I think you hit it on the head with halftime adjustments. That I think that a lot of coaches are not good at that. As far as whether you're holding stuff in back, actually making adjustments, not showing all of your hand and just trying to stay tight into that because that is part of your strategy. I think even before pregame of what can we do or don't have to do early, you know, and then have some counter punches available for yourself, you know, in the half. And Nick Saban is very, very good at that. And I will give him hats off to that. And there's plenty of, you know, teams that do stuff like that. Typically the more elite ones, they're really good at making halftime adjustments from either angle. You know, it could be you're already up and you still got other stuff that you may want to put out there, you know, to keep it up because you know they're going to adjust. So you need your counter to that. So that was a pleasing win for me. And I was nervous. I didn't know what it was going to be like. Is that, you know, Georgia, and you figure at some point in time, you know, Kirby's going to come through and figure out a way to beat him. But
someday,
I think if there's any coach, if there's any assistant that is going to beat him, I think it's either going to be Lane Kiffin or Kirby Smart. Unfortunately, Kirby coaches a team in Georgia, and Georgia sports just have no regard for leads at all through any sport, apparently.
Right.
So
talking to you, Braves.
Well, and the Falcons.
And the Falcons, right.
Man. You know, 28-3, 40 to whatever, you know, however bad they were beating the Cowboys by that time. Braves blowing a 3-1 series lead. That's just what Georgia teams do. But I do think Kirby's a good coach. But I think I think the same thing. His halftime adjustments just haven't been very good, probably at all. But I wasn't actually worried about Georgia because, you know, they got a guy named Stetson Bennett, who's a walk-on playing quarterback.
That's the problem with Georgia. Now, I know he has a heartstrong story and all that kind of stuff. But man, when I was watching him play, I was like, oh Lord, this dude, he's not ready for.
No,
I mean they had the same problem that A&M had, right? They had all these quarterbacks. They had a stable full of quarterbacks, and they ran off 2 of them.
Yep.
They're playing somewhere else, and then they brought in a transfer, or they brought in 2 transfers. Yeah, get that 2 graduate transfers. Both of them, you know, only have 1 year of eligibility, and guess what? Neither one of them are playing.
Those are COVID reasons.
Yeah, I think both of them ended up opting out. They're like,
yeah,
whatever. I don't even know if I'm going to play anyway, so just go to the draft.
Well, I'm glad they had little man playing because he missed some wide open shots too.
Oh yeah, and they were dropping balls left and right.
Yes, sir.
It was bad. It was ugly there for a while.
That big stage, man. Something about being on that stage. So, hey, man, this has been good, man. I appreciate you guys. I know that we went. And I was anticipating this one to be in a long one, especially with Denise and all that. But I'll tell you what, you guys are fire, man. I'm proud to have you guys as part of my team. I am making a commitment. I will make a statement today for you, Tim, because you are embarrassing me, and I can't have people be associated with my show. But my jersey just pinned up on the damn wall, man. We got to get this shit in the frame, man. I had to give away too many of them for you just to pin it up there like that, man. I know you IndyCar, Tim, and you just, you know, do stuff your way, but we can't have the George Teague jersey just plopped up on the wall like that. That's a foul.
It was the last minute. It was a last minute thing. I wanted to do something.
But you probably used the same tax that you use for our team. Got paint all in my jersey now.
No, see, I didn't want to put tax through it, so I didn't do that. I've got little nails that are like a hook on the end, and I just have it. It could fall down at any minute. I'm surprised I hadn't fallen down because I got the fan on, so that would have been really funny if it just fell off in the middle of the show.
You got to sign it too. I don't think. Did you sign it?
I signed his name on it. It's the same thing, right?
So I think, and this reminds me of how country both of y'all are, since y'all are neighbors and y'all live right around each other. And I think
we do
country, and then you come around with right round. Come on now,
right round.
Hey man, That's because you're influencing me, man. You're influencing me. Marrying these people from Louisiana and got me eating crawfish and gumbo and all that stuff. But, you know, but anyway, man, I appreciate you guys. I'm glad this happened, but man, I'll be sure to get you one hot off the press real quick. Just to give me that jersey back and I'll get it framed for you.
I will do it. I'll bring it Tuesday. Are we doing Tuesday next week, or do we know yet?
Yes. I know that JT may not be available next week. We'll continue to work through that, but if I am, I should know Friday or Saturday, but my anticipation is that at least you and I should plan on being there, and we'll have the fans out. And I'm going to give away some gifts via for people that are watching online and are distance learners, okay, or listeners. I'm sorry.
You've been in school too long, man.
Oh shoot, I'm working from distance too, so you know. We're going to put together something. It'll probably be something where you're going to have to subscribe to cowboyhouse.com. Might as well go ahead, cowboysports.com, cowboyhousesports.com. You're going to need to subscribe to that. You're going to have to be in our show, and you're going to have to watch it, and you're going to have to put a comment over here on our side so we know that you're actually paying attention. And you're going to have to come out of your shell and not just sit there and listen. You're going to have to give us a roll tide or something, to be eligible to win something. But we'll talk through that. I think, JT, do you still got all the mini helmets?
Yeah, I have the mini helmets.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're probably going to do a mini helmet and probably another one of those flags or something.
I don't know who Jet Bratado 493 is, but you have just disqualified yourself.
Yeah, you know who he is. So, and he's the one who needs to donate something because he has all the stuff. So he came to the show earlier this year. You met him. He's a military buddy already. That I've known for a while now. He's a big supporter of it, and for some reason, he always likes to try to get under my skin. He doesn't even like. He just wants someone to say that burn word. Oh, he's retired.
School out east.
Yes, that other school that we don't like, and
East or West Georgia.
So maybe we'll put that in there next time, right? Because now I'm worried because of the way that it's going. All the SEC teams are knocking each other off.
Right.
For us, of course. And does that become a problem? And what does this do when the Pac-12 comes in late and the Big Ten comes in late? Are they going to be ranked? Do they get to just jump in the rankings like everybody else?
Well, they're already in the rankings.
They already have, yeah.
But is it fair or not? Maybe that's a discussion we need to have. Is that,
all right, write that down.
Ohio State's what, JT, number 4, right? They jumped in right at number 4.
Are they at 4?
Yeah, they're top 5.
Well, that's because that school was in the top 5 that had no business being in the top 5.
Absolutely.
In North Carolina.
Yeah.
So,
well, SMU they're there now. What y'all gonna do about SMU? Undefeated and 5-0.
What are we gonna do about SMU?
They're about to be in the top 10.
Just wait till everybody.
They won't be in the top 10.
Okay. All right, man. Well, let's close it out, man.
89, right? They're not allowed to ever be in the top 10 again.
Your stadium has to hold more than 30,000 people.
Oh, yeah. Or Gerald J. Ford Stadium. It's better than Ownby, though. Spent some time out there back in the day.
Well,
all right, just so everybody knows, our guest next week, if this is still correct, George, let me know if it's not, Mr. Jay Barker.
Jay Barker is on next week, man. We gotta have
quarterback, Alabama, your teammate on the 1992 national championship team.
Yep, only got one starter, one loss.
And so he'll be on with us on the video from Birmingham. I believe he lives in Birmingham still.
Yes, that's correct.
Been working on the radio down there, so he should be a good personality for us to have. It'll be good to talk to him again. And yeah, we'll have another good show for everybody. We'll probably be talking about another Alabama win, probably talking about another Cowboys loss. And I'll be bragging about another Aggie win, but I'm not allowed to do that on the air, so I'll just be doing that in private if you can the Maverick bar.
Hey, JT, you got to come and set me up because you got all the mics and all that kind of stuff. You got to come set me up with some.
Yeah, I give you. Well, I mean, I got my own now, but yeah, I can give you the other, the ones that we had before.
Yes.
So you can use those.
They got me looking like a scrub over here. Tim, I don't know what's worse. I don't have the mic or Tim's jersey hanging up on the wall. I don't know.
I'm going to say it's the jersey. I'll say that.
I'd agree.
All right, man.
All right. We are
Much.
Teague's Take. Join us next week live at the Maverick Bar in Carrollton, Texas. With we've got Jay Barker on the video. George and I will be there. JT might be there. If not, he'll be on the TV, and I'll have the TV set up there so everybody can see Jay and JT there behind us. But come out 8:00 Tuesday, as it is every Tuesday. We want to say thanks to our sponsors again: the Maverick Bar, CowboysSI.com, Meat Church, Profound Sites, Repair Resource, and of course the Cowboy House. Go to CowboyHouseSports.com. All the memorabilia, man, and that place isn't like a memorabilia shop. It's like Chris's personal little man cave, man. They've got everything over there. All the Texas Stadium seats, Yankee Stadium seats. They've got he's got a bunch of seats from the old Globe Life Park or Globe Life Field. Sorry, the old one. No, wait, yeah, Globe Life Park is the old one. They need to change that. I can't remember. But anyway,
Well, they shouldn't even have had a second one anyway. But whatever.
Yeah, I agree. You should just air condition the first one. I'm happy with that. But yeah, go check them out. You can walk on the old Texas Stadium end zone turf there at the store too, down there in Lake Dallas. So good stuff going on out there. We will be back next week. We are Teague's Take. That's George. That's JT. I'm IndyCar Tim. Until next week, stay safe, everybody.
You too.